Terrific. And you mentioned in your books, low carb ketogenic diets being very effective for reducing insulin in obese and pre-diabetic, diabetic patients. And perhaps the biggest metabolic hammer, which you just mentioned, is this idea of fasting, of just don't eat anything. Can you discuss a little bit more about some of the benefits of fasting? And of course, fasting isn't really a new thing, is it? I mean, it's been around for quite a few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been around forever, actually, whether it was kind of unintentional or intentional. It's been around in one form or another forever. And the whole idea is that if you don't eat, your body knows how to handle that. As in, if you fast, and fasting is simply a period of time that you don't eat, your body will pull out the stored food energy that you've stored from when you did eat. I mean, that's why we don't die every night when we go to sleep, because we're not eating. We've stored away food energy, glycogen and body fat, and we'll pull it out and use it. So it's not a big deal. It's simply the way that we are designed, because, that's the way all mammals are designed. Otherwise, bears couldn't do it, and tigers and lions who might eat once a week kind of thing. And even other species such as fish and so on. I mean, if you have an aquarium, you don't feed them like 3 times a day. Like, when you have a 5-year-old, they keep feeding them, and they get really sick. And yet we feed ourselves. We get told by our kind of nutritional authority, oh, you should eat 6 times a day. I'm like, why don't you give your fish like 6 times a day meals? See how they do, right? They do really badly. In fact, a lot of times you should feed them every other day kind of thing. And it's like, but for ourselves, like, we don't take that advice. We think that, as soon as you miss a single meal, oh no, you're going to like die. Right. And it's like, that doesn't happen. Right.
And that's something that we've definitely, as a, in terms of the nutrition, dietitian, medical profession, we've instilled that fear that everyone's just going to collapse and fall over. And, you talk about this idea of getting back to 3 square meals, and how even, that plays a major role in this idea of actually not eating for about 12 hours and eating for 12 hours, which today the window for most people, they start eating at 6 or 7 in the morning and they have their last snack on the couch at 11 p.m. So it's just a total discordance there. Can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you go back simply to the 50s or 60s, you got to realize they're eating white bread and Oreo cookies too. But the difference is that they're not eating constantly. So again, you can either store energy or you can burn energy. So if you spend all your time storing energy, guess what? You're going to gain weight. So you got to let your body have a chance to pull that energy that you've taken in your meals back out and burn it. So you want to balance your feeding and fasting windows. That is the period of time that your body is high in insulin and the period of time that it's low in insulin. So as long as you balance them, then you're going to not gain weight. And, nobody ate whole wheat pasta in the 70s. Nobody ate whole wheat bread. I mean, I grew up then, right? Very few people. It was all Wonder bread, white bread. And yet there was very little obesity. But what we didn't have was the snacks. You'd come home and you'd say, can I have a snack? And then your mom would say, no, you can't.
Exactly.
You're going to ruin your dinner. Or it's like, we have nothing to eat, right? That was my usual response, right? We have nothing to eat. Wait till dinner. So there's nothing to eat. What are you going to do? You go outside and play. So now we went from the idea that you shouldn't eat snacks to the idea that you should eat like the minute you roll out of bed. Like, don't even let your feet hit the floor before you start stuffing some bread into your mouth, right? Like, why? Sure. What's the point of that? And even the very word itself, breakfast, it's the meal that breaks your fast, which means that fasting is an integral part of everyday life. That is, if you eat for 10 or 12 hours and you fast for 12 or 14 hours, that's balance, right? You start eating for all the time that you're awake, all of a sudden that balance is gone and you're going to gain weight. And all the trials show that. So the NHANES surveys from 1977 show that people are eating 3 meals a day. 2004, it's closer to 6 meals a day, or 6 eating opportunities. And that's because we've told people to do that, right? It's not that they wanted to do that. We told them, oh yeah, you should have a snack in the morning and snack after school and snack before you go to bed, and that's going to make you lose weight, and it doesn't. And so that's the idea, is that you really want to have that your life in balance. It's really just have kind of fallen out of that balance, and that's played a big part. Now, if you simply go back to that balance, you're not going to lose weight that fast. So you actually have to extend those fasting periods, and you can go out to 16, 18, 20 hours, 24 hours, and you can go into even multiple multi-day fast if people are very ambitious, because again, all you do is you start burning fat. That's what your body does. Your body stores sugar and fat, and when you don't eat, it burns the sugar, burns the fat, right? That's really all that happens.
It's incredible how simplistic it can be to a certain degree. And of course, in your book, The Complete Guide to Fasting, you go into the details, and some of those details are breaking a lot of the myths around fasting, because people are worried, even people who are tremendously overweight, worried about going into starvation mode, worried about burning off muscle, worried about low blood sugars. Can you dispel a few of those myths for us?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about there's several. So starvation mode. What the idea is that if you go into starvation mode, your basal metabolic rate drops, so you're burning less calories, and that's what everybody calls starvation mode. So what's completely ironic about that is that if you simply reduce your calories every day, keep the same meal structure, kind of 5-6 meals a day, but simply control your portion size, you are guaranteed to go into starvation mode. That is, if you eat 2,000 calories a day normally and you burn 2,000 because you're not gaining or losing weight, now you want to lose 20 pounds. So you go down to 1,500 calories, what you take in. Well, your body will sense that and very quickly go down to 1,500 calories a day, and actually go slightly below that. It'll be like 1,400 calories a day. Then what's going to happen, initially you'll lose weight, but then it'll plateau and then it'll go back up. But because you're only burning 1,500 calories instead of 2,000, you're going to feel cold, tired, hungry. You're going to feel like crap. And at the end of a year, you haven't lost any weight. So it's the worst of all possible worlds. And we know that happens. We've had studies going back 100 years that tells us exactly what happens. You do that kind of calorie restriction, you will lose weight. You will go into starvation mode. So what's ironic is that what doesn't cause starvation mode, which is a really bad name, honestly, is actual starvation. So if you don't eat for 4 days straight, what happens to your basal metabolic rate? Well, the studies show that it's actually 10% higher at the end of your 4-day fast than when you started, right? And that's fascinating. If you do studies of alternate daily fasting, where you eat one day, don't eat one day, what they find again is that there was no change in the basal metabolic rate, but the people who just tried to restrict their calories, they did drop their basal metabolic rate. So those people who were using portion control go into starvation mode. And what's the difference? Everybody asks me what the difference is. The difference is that when you fast, your body cannot burn 0 calories, right? You'll die. So it actually switches fuel sources. When your insulin goes down, your body burns through your sugar. Once it burns through your sugar, it starts burning fat. So you're actually switching fuel sources. So now your body's like, oh, it wants to burn 2,000 calories because that's where it was. And it's like, whoa, there's tons of fat here. So let's burn it. Why would I reduce the amount I'm burning? I'm just going to burn it. And if you look, and one of the reasons that happens is that there is something called counter-regulatory hormones. And counter-regulatory hormones are hormones that basically counter insulin. So insulin makes blood glucose go down. That is, it makes glucose goes into cells. And counter-regulatory hormones make glucose go up. So when your insulin goes down, your counter-regulatory hormones go up so that you pull back out the sugar so that you don't die. Those hormones are things such as noradrenaline and growth hormone and cortisol. So it is a stress on the body, just like exercise is a stress on the body. And if too much cortisol is your main problem, well, fasting may not be your best option either. But that's part of the response. So the body actually starts to begin to activate itself, right? And that makes sense from a survival standpoint, because if you don't eat and you start to shut down your body, you will never eat again. Because if you thought you couldn't catch that rabbit, before, after you shut down 25%, you're never going to catch that rabbit.
Absolutely.
So your body's not quite that stupid. What it does is it switches fuel sources and pumps us up. So you go out, you have lots of energy. And people who do the fasting have actually noticed this. Some people have so much energy they can't sleep at night, and then they always complain about it. And people feel that they have, before they are sluggish, and now they have lots of energy because we're liberating that fuel source of the body fat. Before, you couldn't use it because you kept eating all the time. Your insulin levels stayed high all the time, especially if you have insulin resistance. Insulin stays high all the time. You're telling your body to store energy, so it's all getting locked away. And you're not using it. So if you have you're trying to burn wood, but instead you're just storing more and more firewood, right? And then, opening up more things, but you're never burning it. So we want what the fasting does is it kind of offers you a quick hack, if you will, to get into that fat burning mode, to move into that area where you can burn it. Once your body's able to burn it, it has no reason to lower its metabolic rate, so you don't get the starvation mode. And that's a huge advantage for weight loss, because if you simply drop your metabolism every time you drop, a few calories, you're in a dead end. You lower calories in, your body shuts down. Then you lower it a bit more, then your body shuts down a bit more. Then you lower it more, then your body shuts down a bit more. Then you feel like crap, so you go back up, and then you gain all the weight back.